Hey there. Happy June 8th. Doesn't mean a thing to me, but it's June 8th, and we're looking at Psalm 39, and it is kind of a depressing psalm. It sounds like David is ill. It sounds like he's just tired of depressing things. I think sometimes we just get tired of things going wrong and not having anything fun and just being beat down. Life is tough, and his soul aches. He yearns for God's good pleasure, and for whatever reason, right now, he feels like his sin is sucking his soul. And you know what? Sin sucks our soul sourly down. And in a lot of ways, it should. God convicts us with his spirit. God wants us to be aware of how undeserving we are. I don't think he is trying to say, hey, I want you to know this. But I think it's important for us to be humble and know that we're undeserving of God's great goodness, of his wonderful rewards. The angels stand in awe. David doesn't talk about that, though. He just points out how bad things are, and then he's going to keep silent because maybe his enemies would hear him talk, and he doesn't want them to hear. And inside, he just gets worse and worse and more depressed. He doesn't say he's depressed, but you kind of get that feeling from him. Some people have said that David was bipolar. We have no way of knowing. But from the clues from the Psalms, he does have a tendency to go from one extreme to the other. And most of the time, though, we find that even in the depths of his despair, David is able to look up and cry out and say, I will sing to the Lord. But I think sometimes this is not happening, especially in this particular case. It's not happening, I think, because he is sick. He's keeping quiet, and I think it helps us to realize. To me, it helps me realize that David is pretty wise. He really knows what's going on spiritually, and he recognizes in verses 4 and 5 that we're just a short life here on earth. I can't believe I'm 58. I'm going to be 59 in just 5 months or so. Less than that. I'd start thinking about it. That sounds old. Some of you are thinking, boy, I wish I was only 58. And some people may be hearing this and thinking, he is old. So, but we have a short life here. And he says we are but a handbreadth. Our life is but a fleeting time here on earth. And it's not anything more than a breath. We're a mere phantom that just kind of goes to and fro. And there's a couple points in this psalm. Again, we get to this word, Selah. I'm not sure how to say it in Hebrew. But it seems to have a point of emphasis in that when you get to this in the Psalms, you need to pause and think what we're talking about. And here we're talking about, you know what? Life is short. Each man's life is but a breath. I can't help but think about my dad. A great guy. I just have heard a lot of people say a lot of good things about my dad. I liked him. I loved my dad. And I can't help but think a few times in the latter years that he was nothing more than just kind of a child dreaming, thinking of maybe what it would have been like for him and trying to keep this facade up of a good, strong man, a family man of of 4 children and one wife who has really made a good life of himself. Because I'm starting to think these things. That, you know what? I don't feel a lot different than I did when I was a little kid. I'm insecure. I'm uncertain sometimes. Hope that doesn't scare you. I'm unsure of myself. I realize I'm pretty sinful. I don't like myself. I think I look funny. I sound really weird, and I sound, to me, I sound slothful. When I hear it back in these recordings, I just sound like I'm really lazy, and no wonder people fall asleep when they hear me preach. Yeah, I'm made in the image of God. I'm his child. I'm an heir of the king. He loves me. He didn't wait for me to get good to love me. I know these things. But I don't always feel good about myself. That's where David is. He says, but now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. Save me from my own transgression. Save me from the scorn of fools. I was silent. I didn't open my mouth. But you are the one. You're the one who's done this. Remove the scourge from me, Lord. I'm overcome by the blow of your hand. I mean, sounds a little bit like Job. David is like, God, leave me alone. Just let me. David had been blessed by many people in his family. I don't know how many wives he's had. At this point, we don't know what stage of life he is, if he had committed adultery yet with Bathsheba. Don't know how blessed he is by other people, if he's still fighting with Saul. But we know David was blessed, and he's struggling. And we can be very blessed and still struggle. And don't feel like you're alone when that happens, because we all do. And he just finally ends with, Lord, hear my prayer. Hear my prayer. Listen to my cry for help. And don't be deaf to my weeping. Can you imagine King David weeping about his sin? Weeping out loud? I mean, there have been times I get on my knees. Here in this last year, it's happened several times. Weep out loud. Thinking, maybe people don't really like me. Not that that matters. That isn't what I'm built on, people's liking me. But I can tell you, life is a struggle. I'm busy beyond my desires. Sometimes I cause that myself. I realize this. And then it sounds like maybe in verse 6, when David says, he hustles about only, but in vain. He heaps on wealth and doesn't even know who's going to get it. You know, it sounds a little bit like the book of Ecclesiastes. Lord, just hear my prayer. And he says, verse 13, look away from me, Lord, that I might rejoice again. Wow. Things are going to be tough. And I know they're tough for people who've lost loved ones in these riots. It's tough for people who have lost loved ones through coronavirus. And I just pray, as one of my students has recently written to me, that the second half of this year isn't near as bad as the first. I hope it lightens up. But you know what? The Lord has still blessed me. And I appreciate that. There are times, like in Psalm 39, that it just seems like blessings are a far way off for David. And there may be time like that for you. But keep your hope in the Lord, because there's not a whole lot else we got.